Reading of the book entitled Because We Are Stronger by Amira Elias. Reading the chapter entitled The Launch of My Spiritual Journey. It was late one afternoon. I sat quietly reading the commentary on the Quran. Then I came across a story told by the Prophet, a story that would change my life. It was about a man who asked God to build him a house in heaven. In return, the man made a promise. He would give away half of his wealth in charity to purchase such a house as a form of spiritual exchange. According to the prophet, God accepted the man's pledge, and the man was granted his house in heaven. The story really inspired me. It wasn't just inspiring, it felt personal, as though it had been placed before me for a reason. It became the spark, the launch of my own spiritual journey. The story touched my heart so deeply that I immediately decided to make a similar pledge, to give away half of my wealth to charity. That decision began to ripple through my life. From that moment on, everything in my life changed dramatically. My life began to shift in dramatic, unexpected ways. It was as though a hidden current had been set into motion, one that would carry me through trials, awakenings, and moments of grace that I could have never imagined. As if that pledge was both a turning point for me and a sacred exchange. With that vow, I turned to God and whispered a simple yet powerful prayer. Please, God, build me a house in paradise. Filled with enthusiasm, I began distributing the funds I had promised, contributing to various charitable causes. That moment marked the beginning of my spiritual journey, a journey that began with a desire for something eternal and divine. I didn't want to settle for anything less than the highest reward. Thus, my spiritual journey started by asking God to build me a house in paradise, which reminded me of the story in the Quran when the wife of Pharaoh said, "My Lord, build for me near you a house in paradise, and save me from Pharaoh and his deeds, and save me from the wrongdoing people." Asking God to build me a house in heaven meant the desire to be close to God. It also meant that I was committed to doing whatever it takes. I believe that whenever someone asks for a specific rank, whether in the material world or in the spiritual realm, they must commit to working towards it. My request for a house in paradise was not merely symbolic, it expressed my longing to be close to God. And such a lofty goal demanded genuine dedication. This is not, however, like chasing a worldly goal. Unlike worldly pursuits, the path towards spiritual elevation is not clearly charted. Let me explain the difference. In life, when someone aims for an academic degree, for instance, the requirements are outlined, the courses, the credits, the duration, it's all defined. There is a goal, a roadmap, and a timeline. Spiritual aspirations follow a similar principle of dedication, yet the journey is vastly different. In the spiritual realm, the results are as ambiguous and indefinite as the unseen realm itself. No one knows in advance what kind of trials and challenges are in store for them. They have no idea how long each episode will last, or how hard and how often the difficult times are going to occur, or when it will all end. There is no syllabus for spiritual growth. It becomes a test, unlike any worldly exam, where students are given a fixed time and can plan their answers. During exams, students have an idea of how to manage their time. They can begin with answering the questions they know best. In contrast, we do not know how long we have to live or when we will stand before God for judgment. Life can end in an instant, cutting short the time we think we have to prepare. That is why anyone asking for the highest rank in heaven must act swiftly, eager to perform good deeds without delay. Time is never guaranteed. The Quran tells us that even within paradise, just as there are ranks and stages in worldly life, there are many ranks and levels in paradise. But in paradise, the rewards are greater and eternal. In Quran 17:21, it says, "Note how we preferred some people above others in this life. The differences in their hereafter as far greater and far more significant." Thus, to aim for the highest is to accept that the path will be steep, unpredictable, and filled with unseen challenges, but it is a path worth walking. A new title, The Beginning of Hell. Not long after I made my pledge to give half of my wealth to charity, my husband suddenly announced that he had decided to move our family overseas again. Whether it was a coincidence or something more, I couldn't tell. What I did know was that this decision would uproot us from our comfortable home and take us across the ocean to a small, isolated town in the middle of the desert. It also meant I would have to resign from my thriving career. After the move, everything fell apart. We were all unhappy. Our life became pure hell. As I mentioned that the path will be steep, and here is the beginning of hell. My worldly affairs collapsed. All things got brutally worse. What began as inconvenience spiraled into emotional and financial devastation. 2 years after making my pledge, I came to realize something important. Paradise was not so easily attained. One has to be tried and challenged, and I was. Well, I asked for it. Not the trials, to be sure, but the palace in paradise, which for me meant being close to God. And such a gift is never given freely. One cannot simply give away half of their wealth and get a palace in heaven. One must walk through fire to reach heaven's gate. One has to be tested, and I was. Spiritual growth and hardship seem to be mysteriously intertwined. Perhaps this is God's way of cleansing the soul, burning away attachments, illusions, and ego. These difficult times can be seen as opportunities for us to grow and evolve spiritually, and in the process, eventually gain wisdom. I see those trials as a form of divine instructions. They taught me resilience, patience, and spiritual awareness. I learned to stand firm in the face of life's unpredictability. I learned to trust that nothing lasts forever, not even pain. This too shall pass. The Buddhists speak of impermanence, a law woven into the fabric of existence, that all things born of condition are caught in the dance of change, restless, ever turning, never still. And Islam, too, cradles the wisdom gently in its heart. This world is not our destination. It is a fleeting passage, a mirage shimmering on the horizon of eternity. Its treasures dissolve with time. Its joys are borrowed. Its sorrow brief. What we call reality is but a traveler's inn, a place of trial, not triumph, a place we pass through, not to dwell in. The true homeland lies beyond, in the world that does not perish, in the realm where permanence begins. A new title, A Lesson in Giving. During the period when I was actively fulfilling my pledge by distributing money to charitable causes, I came to a profound realization. Here is one example that I will never forget. One day, I went to the marketplace with a specific amount in mind to give away in charity to continue to fulfill my pledge. By the end of my visit, I had distributed nearly all of it, leaving just a small portion in my pocket. As I was about to leave, I noticed a porter pushing a wooden cart. He looked weary and worn, his clothes ragged, and his steps heavy. Something in me felt he was the right person to receive the last of the money. So I went after him. But as I followed him, he began to move away faster. I tried to keep up, quickening my pace through the crowded street. He seemed always just a few steps ahead, just out of reach. I began to feel winded, nearly out of breath, but I kept on going. Then suddenly I stopped. Why am I chasing him? I thought. Maybe it isn't meant for him. That moment struck me like lightning. I realized I had no control over this process. Not really. The act of giving wasn't mine to direct. I was merely carrying out God's will. I understood the message. I turned around and went home. It was time for my prayer. The lesson I learned was that although I was the one physically giving away the money, it was never truly my decision who would receive it. I was merely a vessel. To my amazement, I began to feel that God was orchestrating the entire process, that He alone decided who was meant to benefit. I felt a sense of surrender and obedience to an unseen force, and my emotional vulnerability. A new title, A Gift from Heaven, Money Falling from the Sky. After a few days, I was driving home from work, reflecting on my intention to give away a larger sum of money that day. It was a scorching afternoon. I noticed a man sleeping in the back of a moving pickup truck ahead of me. He was exposed to the brutal midday sun. He looked completely vulnerable under the open sky. His face was weary. His body lay still, as though it had surrendered completely to exhaustion. I don't know why, but something stirred deeply in me. Give him all of it, the thought whispered. Immediately I pushed back. This is silly, I reasoned. We're on a fast-moving highway. How am I supposed to do that? But the feeling wouldn't leave me. It pressed harder, insistent, undeniable. Finally, I surrendered to the urge. So I signaled to the driver to pull over. He looked confused, but complied, pulling to the shoulder. I stepped out of the car and made my way towards the truck. Meanwhile, the man in the back woke up as the pickup slowed down and to stop. I approached him and placed the entire amount of money in his hands. He looked at the bills in disbelief, then raised the bills to his lips and kissed them. His eyes turned toward the sky as he whispered a prayer of gratitude. It was as if, in his world, the money had fallen from the sky, a gift from nowhere, a blessing from heaven. I walked back to my car, stunned by what had just happened. My heart was full, but my mind was racing. Who was that man? What was his story? Why did God choose him? And why did I, a seemingly rational woman, stop traffic on a highway to hand over a small fortune to this stranger? I didn't know any of the answers. I trusted God's unseen plans and surrendered to divine guidance by saying, I don't know, only God knows.